Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Doctor Who Episode 9 video. It was a little bit James Cameron Aliens meets The Ring film series meets Shakespeare because Mark Gatiss. Anytime Mark Gatiss writes an episode, there's always some Shakespeare in there. Careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet, and there's a new round of the Doctor Who giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. So let's go, starting with top 5 WTF. Gagan Rasmussen tells us that we're not supposed to watch the video that they open the episode with. This is pure Ring. It's like, don't watch the videotape, you're gonna die in 7 days. It had been so long since I'd seen that movie, but instantly when he said that, things you can't unsee, that's all I could think about. All of a sudden the Doctor and Clara come climbing out of this creepy looking well and jump out of the screen at you. But the episode itself was originally conceived as a found footage episode. That's why we were viewing things through what looked like a helmet cam. But the Doctor explains later that nobody has helmet cams. Whether you love or hate the idea of a found footage episode, I still think the most famous found footage film of all time is The Blair Witch Project, which I actually did get to see in theaters. But I do give them bonus points, but just because I know Doctor Who has a very limited budget when they try things like this. Like they try to change the style of the show. The way I thought about it is this is kind of like a bottle episode, like an elevator episode designed to save money so that they can spend more money on the finale. So, more special effects, bigger things, bigger casts. That's why there was almost nobody in this episode. Like it costs a lot more money to cast more actors, especially if you have a lot more sets too. So this is like the money saver episode, which is kind of funny if you know how television is made. They even have their version of Bishop. But the funniest thing in my mind is like when the Doctor starts explaining history to Clara, like they're in the 38th century, so a lot has happened. She's like, what disaster? He's like, oh, don't worry, you're not gonna have to worry about it. You're gonna be long dead by that time. He just holds his finger up just to guess what time it is, like he's guessing the direction of the wind. If you've ever watched Joss Whedon's Firefly series, it also postulates that in the far future, the world has moved in a much more culturally Eastern direction. On number 3 though, meet the Morpheus machine, sleep no more. So the idea is that they've taken like the 8 hours of sleep that you would usually need and compressed it into 5 minutes. Great idea, right? What could go wrong? Well, the Doctor figures out that like the sleep dust that accumulates in your eye has actually evolved into this biological life form that is now spreading like a disease. Like it's slowly taking over, using actual people for food. This is where I feel most of the complaints about this episode will come from, that whole conceit. The rest of the episode I felt like was great, but this is like the one weak point in the episode you could argue about. Mark Gatiss really brings the Shakespeare in when the Doctor starts quoting Macbeth, just hammering home the idea that trying to circumvent this really important biological process leads to very dire consequences. If you've never read the story of Macbeth, let's just say that it does not end well for him. So it will not end well for those that try to circumvent sleep. I do have to say, I kind of like it when Doctor Who tries to turn metaphors into literal things. It doesn't always work. You could argue the conceit of the sleep dust is kind of ridiculous, but the idea of turning the Shakespeare metaphor into a literal thing is pretty cool. On the number 2 though, there are no helmet cams. So the big reveal is that there's been something in the engine room that's being kept alive that is hijacking all of the visual feeds. But there are no cameras, so WTF, where's everything coming from? Well, it turns out that the sleep dust itself becomes a visual receptor. So when sleep dust accumulates in your eyes, that's when you start seeing things from people's perspective. Like the Doctor actually breaks the fourth wall a couple times when he looks into camera, but most of the time it's for the benefit of this third-person camera perspective. But the funniest joke about the whole thing though is like when he turns to camera, Claire's like, wait a minute, when do you sleep, Doctor? And he looks at us, the viewers, and he's saying, when you're not looking. Like he's saying it to Clara, but he's really saying it to us. So you can think of the sleep dust as this sentient cloud of biological matter that just like forms itself into physical beings when it needs to. But finally, on to my number 1 WTF moment, it literally turns into the Ring movie at the very end when the professor reveals that you have already been infected with the Morpheus process by watching the tape. It's not biological at all. It's not a biological infection. It's an electrical one that triggers the Morpheus process. And the Morpheus process is what causes like the sleep dust in you to turn into a sentient thing. So if you had not gone through the Morpheus process or you hadn't watched this tape, you go to sleep, you wake up, you have sleep dust, you wipe it away, you're good. But the minute you undergo that Morpheus process, that electrochemical process, think of like your sleep dust is becoming weaponized. So the idea is that the sleep dust, which has made itself to look like Gagan Rasmussen, was going to transmit the signal across the cosmos to infect humanity instantaneously. So let me know in the comments below, like how did you feel about some of the conceits of this episode, or how did you feel about the twist at the end, even if you had never seen that movie The Ring before? I felt like the episode was good. It was a good cautionary tale, like you need to sleep. Don't try to work your way around that. Anytime you try to circumvent nature, something really terrible will happen. Very typical parable you see in a Doctor Who episode, and I did see a bit of Davros in this Gagan Rasmussen character, until it turned out that he was the dust the whole time. I think of the Sandmen as my children. The only complaint I had is just the conceit that sleep dust in the corner of your eye would turn into these sentient monsters that try to consume the human race. I think I would have rather it turned into a supernatural thing where they turned the god Morpheus into an actual thing. If you remember last season, they actually kind of did one of these nature versus man episodes where the forest becomes sentient and rises up against man. That was actually a very poorly reviewed episode. So I feel like if there are poor reviews against this week's episode, it'll be for similar reasons. Sleep dust in the corner of your eye, who could believe that? But the rest of the episode was great, especially considering that this was like a money saver episode. Like it was intended to be a much smaller, self-contained story. But in case you guys haven't seen it, the actress who plays Missy, Michelle Gomez, said that she's going to be on Gotham. She posted this picture. Her character's going to be called The Lady. I just think it's going to be so awesome. Hopefully Sean Pertwee gets some pictures with her from behind the scenes. It's always funny to see him take pictures with other Doctor Who actors. Like he and Capaldi are good friends, just because Pertwee's father was one of Capaldi's favorite doctors. Just to talk about some of the Easter eggs that I haven't mentioned already, the actor that played Gagan Rasmussen actually played the second Doctor during an adventure in space and time, the docudrama about Doctor Who that they aired last year. When he talks about the Silurians, there was an actual episode called Doctor Who and the Silurians, so he's just referring back to that. And then of course there's the Shakespeare episode, the Shakespeare Code from the David Tennant era. If there were any other Easter eggs that you guys saw that I didn't mention, just write them below in the comments. I should also say next week, really cool, a Shielder is coming back for Doctor Who. I don't know what time period it's going to take place in, but it looks like it's going to be really badass. In case you guys haven't seen it, there's a whole bunch of Star Wars stuff that's been happening the last couple of days. I am working on a Flash trailer video. Gorilla Grodd is coming back next week. He is going to wreck shit. It's going to be so much fun. So be sure to subscribe to get everything. Oh, and actually that reminds me, I have a Doctor Who giveaway winner to name. Jack Bolton, you win a $20 Amazon gift card. Just be sure to private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact info. While you guys wait for my next video to post, you can click here for the Star Wars trailer that I just posted, and you can click here for all my other Doctor Who videos. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody, let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.